Hey there. Thank you so much for joining us this July 3rd. Hope that you are enjoying your long holiday weekend. I'm Veronica Cruz, and welcome to Scripps News Live. Here's a look at some of the stories that we are tracking for you today.
We do have one person in custody who is believed to be at least one of the shooters in this incident.
Couldn't believe the numbers. You know, it was frightening, and whew.
We will find those who are responsible, and we will not stop until we do so.
They're trying to divide us further, and it's wrong. It is a teenage, food fight between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump.
While the DeSantis campaign is making a calculation this might help him in a primary, likely not going to help him in a general election at all.
Somebody said, how come you only attack him? I said, because he's in second place. Well, why don't you attack others? Because they're not in second place.
We know that there are downsides to fireworks.
We need alternative ways to celebrate that won't burn our neighbor's house down.
It was a violent weekend across the country as 4th of July celebrations kicked off. Joy quickly turning to fear in Baltimore. A shooting at a block party leaving 2 people dead, 28 others injured, about half of them minors. National correspondent Morris Sirianni is tracking the developments from Baltimore and other cities reeling from the violence over the weekend.
Good morning. More communities grappling with gun violence. Celebrations on America's Independence Day weekend marred once again by this type of violence and shootings from the East Coast to the Midwest. So let's start in Baltimore, where you guys mentioned that is the big story from over the weekend. An intense manhunt is underway even now after 2 people were killed and 28 others were wounded in a mass shooting at a block party that's happening overnight Sunday. Police Commissioner Richard Worley confirms an 18-year-old woman and a 20-year-old man are among the dead, victims ranging in age from just 13 years old to 32, with most being teenagers. Police say they are searching for more than one shooter, but here's what officials in Baltimore had to say about the gun violence epidemic.
This tragic incident is another glaring, unfortunate example of the deep issues of violence in Baltimore, in Maryland, in this country, and particularly gun violence and the access to illegal guns.
This is a societal problem that we're dealing with, a mass shooting where a disagreement turns into 28 people shot.
We mentioned other communities on edge. In Wichita, Kansas, 7 people were wounded after a person walked into a nightclub there with a gun and opened fire, leading to widespread panic. As you can imagine, a lot of chaos. No one has died, but police said at least 2 others were injured as they were trying to escape the gunfire. They were trampled as they tried to get out of that venue as quickly as possible. The Gun Violence Archive this morning reporting 340 mass shootings in America this year. It is only the beginning of July. A mass shooting, again, is defined as an incident with 4 victims, not including the shooter. And police in Chicago said more than 30 people have been shot in that city since Friday. And people in that state already with heavy hearts. These latest shootings come just days before the 1-year mark for the mass shooting during a 4th of July parade in Highland Park, where 7 people were killed and 48 others were wounded. Mara Sirianni, Scripps News.
All right, Maura, thank you for that. Now, the race for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination is getting decisively messy at the top. Former President Trump might have a massive lead in the polls, but Florida Governor Ron DeSantis started a new type of attack on the frontrunner. The DeSantis campaign sharing a video over the weekend attacking Trump for his past support of the LGBTQ+ community.
I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens.
DeSantis has signed a series of new laws in Florida targeting LGBTQ+ rights. At least 18 other states have done the same. And this latest attack ad has members of the community on both sides of the aisle criticizing the governor, accusing the ad of glorifying trans and homophobia. National political correspondent Kevin Sterling is live for us right now in Washington. So, Kevin, what are people saying about this ad? What has the reaction been like in Washington so far?
Well, Democrats have forcefully pushed back in criticizing Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for this ad, calling it homophobic. But within the Republican Party, DeSantis is also drawing criticism, including from the president of Log Cabin Republicans, a conservative group that backs LGBTQ+ rights. Take a listen to what Charles Moran, the president of Log Cabin Republicans, told me earlier this morning.
The DeSantis campaign ad was a misdirected attempt to attack an extreme LGBT agenda, but instead it actually targeted LGBT individuals in the conservative movement who are actually doing things to help the conservative movement. In this type of situation, Ron DeSantis put out this campaign video or retweeted something from his official messaging campaign that was misguided in a way that it didn't attack the real problem. There's a lot of conversation going on right now about parental rights, about extremism, especially coming out of Pride Month, about what Pride Month has turned into, commercialization, performative politics by woke corporations. Those are all things that Ron DeSantis could have actually focused on.
Now, all of this went down over the weekend when many of the Republican presidential candidates, including Trump and DeSantis, were in Philadelphia to attend and speak at the conservative Moms for Freedom Forum, in which all of them essentially made their pitch that they would restrict the conversations around transgender and gender affirmation in K-12 education and what they describe as parental rights, something that has been something that has increased rhetorically in the conversation amongst conservative circles since the pandemic. And separately from that, Trump said when he spoke there in Philadelphia that he would issue an executive order on the first day in office that would ban the conversation regarding transgender conversations and gender affirmation in the classroom, and that he would sign that executive order on his first day in office. Meanwhile, Trump and sources close to the Trump 2024 campaign have argued that he has been where the country is as it relates to gay marriage. And if we pull up a poll of gay marriage and American support for gay marriage just within the last couple of years, you see that 71% of Americans back gay marriage in 2023. That's even up from the 63% a couple of years ago in 2019. But Veronica, what Republicans are trying to do, is specifically DeSantis, is with this ad, is to try to specifically peel off some of the base of Trump's support in the evangelical community as it relates to this conversation around transgender rights. That's why you're seeing him release this ad. Whether or not it works remains to be seen.
And once more, Kevin, how far apart are they in the polls right now?
Massively far apart. I mean, Trump is up double digits, and some polls, even the one I saw before coming on air, up by 23 percentage points. And in a state like Iowa, where this type of attack, one could argue, politically could help DeSantis with the evangelical community, ethanol, one would also argue, according to this source that I spoke with earlier this morning, is a larger issue for Iowa farmers. And Trump is attacking DeSantis on his position regarding ethanol in Iowa.
All right, Kevin Turley live for us there in Washington. Kevin, thank you so much for the update. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen will be visiting Beijing later this week in an effort to improve relations between the United States and China. And she'll be arriving Thursday and then staying through Sunday. Now, the goal of the trip is to stabilize the global economy and challenge China's relationship with Russia over the war in Ukraine. Yellen won't be meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Secretary of State Antony Blinken visited China last month. Scripps News anchor Lauren Magarino takes a closer look at the growing tensions between the United States and China and where the relationship stands right now.
Just as state leaders call for a cooling of tensions between the U.S. and China, it seems the temperature only continues to climb. In mid-June, Secretary of State Antony Blinken visited President Xi Jinping to discuss relations and conflict aversion.
He made clear that while we will compete vigorously, the United States will responsibly manage that competition so that the relationship does not veer into conflict.
But soon after, President Biden made remarks at a campaign reception, saying that President Xi was upset about the spy balloon shot down in February as a, quote, great embarrassment for dictators when they didn't know what happened. The spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry called the comment extremely absurd and irresponsible. It's still unclear what the impact of the comments will be. The war of words is not the only recent flashpoint between the two superpowers since the high-profile spy balloon incident earlier this year. In April, a federal court in New York brought charges against two men allegedly connected to an illegal overseas police station operating in Lower Manhattan. The Department of Justice says it was operated by a provincial branch of the Ministry of Public Security of the People's Republic of China.
Now just imagine the NYPD opening an undeclared secret police station in Beijing. It would be unthinkable.
There are over 100 so-called police stations around the globe, supposedly to intimidate dissidents living abroad. Cities in Canada, Germany, the Netherlands, and others have opened investigations into alleged police outposts. The Spain-based human rights NGO Safeguard Defenders has documented alleged stations across these countries. China has denied these are police outposts and insists they are stations to assist with services like driver's license renewals. In June, to add to security concerns, the Wall Street Journal reported that China was planning to build a new military training facility in Cuba, according to suggestions from U.S. intelligence reports. The Pentagon denied initial reports.
That reporting, I can tell you based on the information that we have, that is not accurate, that we are not aware of China and Cuba developing any type of spy station.
But it has yet to comment on the latest investigation. According to Gallup polling this year, for the third time in a row, Americans are most likely to name China as the greatest adversary of the U.S. over Russia, North Korea, and Iran. A Pew Research Center survey in March showed that the greatest concerns for Americans were specifically the partnership between China and Russia, tensions between China and Taiwan, and the country's record on human rights. As U.S.-China relations continue to be a major concern for many Americans, the Biden administration faces an uphill battle to de-escalate tensions, all while refusing to cede to arguably its greatest economic competitor.
That was our Lauren Magarino reporting there for us. And you can find deeper dives on all of these stories and much more online. Feel free to check us out at Scripps News on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, we're going to peel back the layers of the Supreme Court and explore the impact it's made in shaping our nation. Plus, a plea from the grandmother of a French teenager killed in a police shooting is urging calm right now, why she thinks some of the protests have turned violent. And we would like to hear from you. You can give us a call on our Scripps News viewer hotline toll free. That number's on your screen right now. It's 1-833-4-SCRIPPS. Feel free to share your comments and your story ideas.
There's a new victim of identity theft every 3 seconds. Checking your credit score or bank statements may not be enough to alert you. That's because identity threats appear in more places than you realize, making it dangerously easy to become a victim.
Someone got my social security number, made a driver's license, and tried to buy a car in my name. Felt really devastating, frightened, because I had no control.
Identity thieves can use your information to open loans, transfer home titles, even commit crimes.
Someone used my information to open up bank accounts in my name. It was terrifying, not knowing what was out there and what had been opened.
But protecting your identity can be easy with LifeLock, a leader in identity theft protection. LifeLock monitors for threats to your identity, especially ones you may miss by simply checking your accounts or credit. If there's an issue, LifeLock will alert you.
There was a big yes button and there was a big no button. So I clicked, "That's not me," and LifeLock took it from there.
And if you're a victim, your dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist will work to fix it.
If something happens, you have somebody fighting for you. I don't know what I would have done without my restoration specialist.
All plans backed by LifeLock's $1 million protection package, including reimbursement for stolen funds, personal expenses, and coverage for lawyers and experts if needed.
With the $1 million protection package, I know LifeLock has me covered.
It can be dangerously easy to steal your identity, but now it's easy to help protect yourself.
I realize identity theft can happen to anybody, so that's why I signed up for LifeLock.
Join the millions of people already protected by LifeLock, and for a limited time, save 25% with promo code 25 today. LifeLock, identity theft protection starts here. Call 800-301-9328 or visit lifelock.com/25 today and use promo code 25 today to save 25% on your first year of identity theft protection. Enroll now.
One way to avoid expensive car repair bills is to be a race car driver. The other is Endurance.
Endurance saved me more than $7,000.
Without Endurance, breakdowns can cost thousands. With Endurance, you're covered.
Endurance covers nearly every car on the road. Plus,
you pick the mechanic you trust.
Act now for $300 off any plan, plus a year of elite benefits and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Call 1-855-588-2580 now.
Hey folks, the league is in absolute chaos. Come down to some rookie taking free throws. Got the young guys going on. The Athletic. Subscribe today.
When Lila was ready to sell her ring, she sent it to Worthy, where they took care of everything and auctioned it on her terms. Then, Worthy sent Lila her money. You're worthy of more. Get started at worthy.com.
The Supreme Court's term ended last Friday with some of the most consequential decisions the court has ever made. And those decisions have left Americans divided. A new ABC Ipsos poll found 53% of Americans think Supreme Court justices rule mainly on the basis of their partisan political views. And that is up 10 points from the same poll in January 2022. With all of the headlines about the High Court in the past few weeks, you might be wondering, how exactly does the Supreme Court work? Congressional correspondent Stephanie Liebergen explains.
The Supreme Court is the highest court in the land, and its rulings have shaped the United States for over 2 centuries. Some recent decisions have put a spotlight on the High Court.
Just minutes ago, the U.S. Supreme Court issued an order to keep a widely used abortion pill on the market.
Chief Justice John Roberts and Justice Brett Kavanaugh sided with the court's 3 liberal justices, ruling that Alabama violated the Voting Rights Act by illegally watering down black voting strength.
The U.S. Supreme Court rejected a challenge by Texas to the Biden administration's policy on deporting certain immigrants. The court ruling was 8-1, with the opinion being written by a Trump-appointed justice.
The high-profile decisions come as polling found public approval is at an all-time low. Only 25% of Americans have confidence in the Supreme Court, according to Gallup. That's a dive of more than 10% compared to the same time last year. And ethics scandals have rocked the court over the past few months, including a long list of conflicts of interest, from a lack of recusals to undeclared payments and gifts.
It makes clear that while the justices are fine with consulting with certain authorities on how to address ethical issues, they do not feel bound by those same authorities.
Precedent has played a crucial role on the bench since it first took shape in the late 18th century. The court was first assembled during President George Washington's time in office. The Judiciary Act of 1789 established an early version of the 3-tiered federal court system of district courts, circuit courts, and the Supreme Court. And the court's more than 230-year legacy largely remains in its original form, despite a few amendments. 6 men made up the nation's first Supreme Court, 5 associate justices, and the first Chief Justice, John Jay, who was President Washington's pick for the job. The president nominates justices, but Congress decides how many sit on the bench. That number changed a total of 6 times before lawmakers settled on the current 9-justice makeup in 1869. According to a recent NPR-PBS Marist poll, 62% of Americans said they have no or not very much confidence in the Supreme Court. That's the lowest recorded in the 5 years since Marist began polling. The lack of confidence is also stark among Democrats and independents. Some polling also indicates Americans are mixed or growing more favorable to expanding the court. The Senate is responsible for confirming the president's Supreme Court nominees. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, President Joe Biden's nominee, became the first black female on the bench in 2022.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me.
When sworn in, justices take the bench for life. The Constitution says to ensure an independent judiciary and protect judges from partisan pressures, the Constitution provides that judges serve during good behavior, which generally means until justices retire or die. However, the Constitution does not specify qualifications for justices. The Supreme Court says they can be any age, have any education or profession. A justice doesn't even have to be a lawyer or a law school graduate, but historically, all have been trained in the law. Unlike other court officials, the U.S. Supreme Court is the only judicial body in the country that does not have to follow an ethics code. But they aren't really allowed to act unethically either. If they do, that could result in impeachment. There is a statute that requires justices to recuse themselves from a case if there's a conflict of interest. Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution gave the U.S. Supreme Court jurisdiction over all U.S. laws, especially cases that involve a law's constitutionality. It has the power to decide appeals on all cases brought in federal court or in a state court if they deal with a federal law. Of the 7,000 to 8,000 petitions they get each year, they choose about 80 to 100 cases to review. The court's term begins in October, and the justices hear oral arguments for the next 7 months. In those hearings, lawyers for each side lay out their legal case. The court will typically discuss the cases with their law clerks to identify different views and form an idea of how they might vote. The justices then hold private conferences to decide the case. Supreme Court protocol says all justices have an opportunity to share their views without interruptions. They speak in order of seniority, starting with the Chief Justice, currently John Roberts. Once the votes are in, the most senior justice in the majority and minority decides who will write the court's opinions. But those opinions don't become final until the ruling is made available to the public. Justices have long held true to confidentiality and are not subject to the Federal Freedom of Information Act. Oral arguments have never been televised, and it wasn't until 2020 in the pandemic that the court began offering live audio from inside the courtroom. But despite any controversy around a case, the court pledges to uphold its ultimate responsibility, the one written above the main entrance in Washington, D.C., equal justice under the law. Stephanie Liebergen, Scripps News.
Straight ahead on Scripps News Live, the temperatures are rising in Texas, but protections for workers are getting less strict. Why the governor won't mandate water breaks. That's next.
This is an important message from USA Family Protection. You may now be eligible for up to $50,000 for your funeral and other final expenses, starting at less than $1 a day.
Mom, it's so great to see you.
Oh, you too, son. And I have to tell you, I've been thinking about the future, and it's really important to me that I don't leave you and your sister with my debts, especially the cost of my funeral and other final expenses, which can be more than $9,000.
Yeah, that would be really hard on us.
Well, I called USA Family Protection, and with one phone call, I was eligible for $50,000 for my funeral and final expenses.
But what about your health issues? Don't they require a medical exam?
That's the best part. There's no medical exam, just a few quick questions, and I was able to get coverage right over the phone. Plus, my rates can never be increased, my benefits can never be decreased, and my coverage can never be canceled.
That's really great, Mom. But can you afford it?
Yes, rates start at less than $1 a day, and when the time comes, payout to you and your sister happens in as little as a few days. I am so happy to know you two are taken care of.
Thanks, Mom. Me too.
Don't leave your loved ones with your debt. Call USA Family Protection at 800-782-2317 and get up to $50,000 for your funeral and other final expenses. There's no medical exam, just a few health questions, and you can be approved right over the phone. Your rates can never be increased, your benefits can never be decreased, and your coverage can never be canceled. Call 800-782-2317. There's no hidden fees and no waiting periods to get covered. Call 800-782-2317. There's no obligation. Call 800-782-2317.
How can a photo become a vibrant part of your home? When you go to tryfracture.com and print your images directly on glass. Get beautiful depth and clarity on a sleek frameless print that's easy to hang and looks incredible in any space. Go to tryfracture.com now to save 20% on glass prints.
Sure, you'll teach her to drive a car. Then use Greenlight and teach her to save up for her own car. Mowing lawns and getting paid. Navigate the world of earning, saving, and investing together. Invest in your best investment. Greenlight.
There's a better way to begin your mornings.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Morning Rush. Thanks so much for being with us.
Context and conversation.
There's a new study that might make you feel a little bit better. Okay. So listen to this.
On the stories that will shape each day.
Here with us now is meteorologist Scott Withers. You got just wave after wave after wave.
So you can get on with yours.
Make sure you stay with us as we monitor this developing story.
Morning Rush. Weekday mornings starting at 7, 6 Central. Only on Scripps News.
Hey there, welcome back to Scripps News Live. So parts of Texas right now seeing triple-digit temperatures. That's going to happen all week, and weather officials are urging Texans to stay cool and hydrated in the meantime. But Governor Greg Abbott gave his final approval on a law last week that will eliminate local rules mandating water breaks for construction workers. National correspondent John Mona explains why lawmakers proposed this change and why critics believe that it might cost lives.
Summers in Texas usually are sweltering. But so far this year, triple-digit temperatures are punishing vast swaths of the state. Yet for many, the work goes on outside in jobs like road and building construction, landscaping, and maintenance.
One of our apprentices yesterday, I was talking with him about this, and he said that the experience was like being cooked.
And come September, they may not get mandated water breaks, all because of a state law designed to take control from local governments. That's because Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed a bill called HB 2127, which supporters believe will eliminate a patchwork of legal regulations that bog down businesses. One of the specific targets, minimum standards for breaks in workplaces.
There's people that are really suffering, and instead of taking action to expand protections to make sure that the state is meeting the needs of residents, they spent the last session rolling back protections.
For example, Dallas and Austin have their own laws for water breaks for at least 10 minutes every 4 hours, so outdoor workers can hydrate and protect themselves from the sun. Between 2011 and 2021, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics says at least 42 Texas workers died from heat exposure. Workers' unions say the numbers may be higher and think the new law will put more people in danger.
We believe that the numbers are a lot higher for fatalities, but they also don't reflect the number of hospitalizations, the number of people that, had heat exhaustion and had to, leave the job site as a result.
Responding to the criticism, a spokesman for the governor says ensuring the safety of Texans is a top priority as our state experiences high summer heat. This bill is consistent with the Federal Occupational Safety and Health Administration standards regarding safe work practices and will not inhibit people from taking water breaks. The new law overrules existing local labor standards and will prevent new ones from being enacted. The National Weather Service is forecasting highs over 100 degrees in several Texas cities for at least the next week. John Moan, Scripps News.
Cleanup efforts are underway in Montana right now. Crews are removing globs of asphalt from the Yellowstone River. Officials with the EPA say the cleanup involves cooling the asphalt with the river water, rolling it up, and then putting it into garbage bags. It will then likely be recycled. Liquid asphalt and molten sulfur spilled into the river after a bridge collapse and train derailment last week. The main concern right now is still protecting human lives and animal lives in the area. I'm Veronica Cruz. Thank you so much for joining us today. For the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next. Remember, you can always check us out on scripsnews.com. If you are staying with us, there is more news headed your way right here on Scripps News Live, including a price check on groceries. Shoppers are sharing how they are fighting back against the high cost of ingredients for their 4th of July cookout. Also, a Colorado man taking his holiday celebration to new heights. We're going to show you how he is offering a safer way to light up those skies. Next.
Wounded Warrior Project has been with me every step of my journey.
Aaron, how you doing, bud? With experiences that help me realize that I'm not alone.
And specialized programs that give me the tools to train my body and mind.
Now, it's possible for me to get back out there.
To get out of my comfort zone and try new things.
To build and be part of a community that supports other warriors.
It's possible to get the help I need for me and my family.
I got my confidence back. I'm setting goals and I'm achieving them.
It's possible to feel understood, whether it's day one or 20 years down the road, they've got your back.
And as each warrior's needs evolve, Wounded Warrior Project is adapting to meet them.
Because when we pull together,
it's possible to go further than you ever imagined.
Hey.
Hey, I'm inside the bank. Where's the $500?
What?
I don't have much time. Where's the $500?
I said drop your bank, not rob your bank.
What?
I said drop your bank and get Dave. The banking app.
Yeah, I thought this was a lot of work for $500.
You think?
I mean, I would love it if you could come get me.
Oh, no. Oh, she going to jail.
Hello?
There's an easier way you can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less when you download Dave.
At Heifer International, we believe in the power of people. Since 1944, we've equipped people with the tools and education they need to move themselves from poverty to power. When a family is given a goat or a cow, they're given more than an animal. It's an opportunity. It's a chance to start a business, put food on the table, and break the cycle of poverty forever. People can stand strong on their own. All they need is a chance. Learn more at heifer.org.
Hey there, welcome to Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica Cruz. Thanks for being with us on this Monday, July 3rd. Let's get you caught up right now on the day's top stories. So the manhunt continues for two gunmen fired at a block party in Baltimore early Sunday morning. 2 people died and more than a dozen of the 28 others were wounded, and they were 18 or younger. 3 were listed in critical condition, and it's not yet clear whether those victims were targeted in the shooting. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen traveling to China later this week, but she will not be meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, who's reportedly angry because President Biden called him a dictator. Biden made the comment while discussing that Chinese spy balloon the U.S. shot down off the South Carolina coast earlier this year. And the grandmother of a 17-year-old boy shot to death by police in a Paris suburb wants the violence to stop. The woman, being identified as Nadia, says that she is angry at the officer who killed her grandson, but not at police in general. 5 days of unrest since the shooting left hundreds of police officers and firefighters injured. Authorities have detained more than 3,000 people. And a lot of you are probably planning your 4th of July barbecue. Jenna Ray with Scripps News Milwaukee says when you see how much ingredients cost at the grocery store, you might feel like you're getting skewered.
Prices are definitely higher than they used to be.
It feels like I'm going for a vacation with the prices that so high. But at least I come out with the food.
Since the pandemic began, we've seen prices everywhere rise, and the grocery store is no exception.
I just bought some lettuce and it cost me like $4.
You're going to see prices compared to last year. They'll be a little bit higher.
Brandon Scholes with the Wisconsin Grocers Association says hope isn't lost. He recommends looking for deals as you're shopping this holiday weekend.
There's going to be all sorts of specials on bratwursts and hamburgers and buns and all sorts of things.
Some customers already snagging those deals.
Bought some baby back ribs today, 2 for $1 basically. $4.49 a pound, which isn't terrible, and you're getting buy one, get one, so that's a good price. Cajun chicken thighs, they're not bad, $1.99 a pound.
The Grocers Association says to save even more money, check coupons for local stores and also consider the generic or private label brands.
Private label is a little less expensive and it's a great buy for a consumer.
If you have a long list of things you need this weekend, Scholes says, don't wait.
The sooner you get there, the better selection you have, and especially if there are specialties, if there's promotions.
And for some, fighting the crowds and lines aren't on the table this year.
Most likely I'll call some of the grandkids and tell them to bring me a plate.
Best way to go about it.
Yeah, it's their turn, not mine.
I'm consumer investigator Jenna Ray.
And forestry officials suggest alternatives to fireworks this 4th of July. They're urging people to opt for things like glow sticks, noisemakers, and silly string. But environmentalists are saying not too fast with that silly string. They say it's difficult to clean up and it isn't necessarily compatible with nature. Also, some communities are moving away from the 4th of July fireworks pyrotechnics. Instead, they're moving to drones. Colette Bordelin with Scripps News Denver spoke with a drone expert about these changing times.
Got it? The sky's the limit for these heavy boxes. Starting their trip in the dirt. But what's in the boxes is where the work takes off.
Heck yeah, let's talk about some drones.
Thomas Dolan could do that all day.
It gives you a view of the world that you can't get.
His young business, Bright Flight Drone Shows, has dreams of getting hundreds of drones.
All right, I'm gonna hover them.
And these drones really shine at night.
What are the differences between drone shows and fireworks shows?
There's a lot of differences. You know, I certainly don't want to sit here and say that I don't love fireworks. I love fireworks. We know that there are downsides to fireworks.
He says those include injuries, noise pollution, and negative environmental impacts.
Drones, there's nothing. They are clean. It's a drone, our battery. You put them up, they put on a spectacular show, they come back, you're done.
Dolan admits weather can be problematic for drones, and how much they cost is another barrier.
There's limitations with our time frame. We're anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes is our typical drone show.
What would you say to the people who just don't want to watch a drone show. They want to see a fireworks show.
Just give it a chance.
A chance when Dolan believes drones are the way of the future for the 4th of July.
That was Colette Bordelin reporting there for us from Broomfield, Colorado. Straight ahead on Scripps News Live. If you think it is hard to get a flight from a major metro area, imagine living in a remote town.
I'm Chris Conte here in Morrisville, Vermont, where you can see there are not a lot of flights coming and going from this small regional airport. There is a similar story playing out in airports like this all across the country. In a lot of smaller places, this is how you get around.
It is a form of necessary transportation when you're far away from the urban centers.
We show you how some rural communities are banding together in hopes of convincing Congress to bring commercial airline flights back to their regions.
Plus, move over Jetsons, a Silicon Valley company ushering in a new era of flight with the U.S. government's support. We're going to have the details for you after a quick break.
Suit up. I want you to look around inside. This officer is inexperienced. She reacts emotionally to incidents other officers take in their stride.
I saw 2 people fall to their deaths.
Missing girl, Tanya Mills.
Okay, when did she go missing?
6th of September 1997, day of Princess Di's funeral.
What are you doing here? I got a job for you. Can I ask a couple of questions?
You ever lost someone you loved before their time?
You don't bloody give up, do you?
If you have this, and you get this, you could end up with this. Unexpected out-of-pocket costs, which for those on Medicare or soon to be, is a good reason to take charge of your health care. So consider this, an AARP Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan from United Healthcare. Why? Because Medicare alone doesn't pay for everything. And what it doesn't pay for, like deductibles and copays, could really add up, even thousands of dollars a year. Medicare supplement plans help by paying some of what Medicare doesn't, and making your out-of-pocket costs a lot more predictable. Call United Healthcare today and ask for your free decision guide. Learn more about plan options and rates to fit your needs. Now, if you like this, greater freedom, you'll love that Medicare supplement plans have no networks and no referrals needed. See any doctor, any specialist, anywhere in the U.S., as long as they accept Medicare patients. These types of plans also give you more flexibility when traveling in the U.S. Your plan goes with you, anywhere you go in the country. Even better, these are the only plans of their kind endorsed by AARP. Call United Healthcare today for your free decision guide. So if you have this and want less out-of-pocket costs and more peace of mind, consider adding this, an AARP Medicare Supplement Plan. Take charge of your healthcare today. Just use this or this to call United Healthcare about an AARP Medicare Supplement Plan.
When Lila was ready to sell her ring, she sent it to Worthy, where they took care of everything and auctioned it on her terms. Then, Worthy sent Lila her money. You're worthy of more. Get started at worthy.com.
Digging deeper into the headlines.
We have some big stories to get to tonight.
Shedding light on groundbreaking investigations and ending your night with something new.
Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Christian Bryant.
Scripps News Tonight, live tonight, starting at 8/7 Central.
Well, right now, more than 1,000 flights across the U.S. are delayed. Dozens others have been canceled. It's all according to FlightAware.com, and it comes after the chaos last week left some travelers stranded for days. Bad weather and staffing issues have been to blame, and United Airlines is hoping to make amends with its most frustrated customers by offering 30,000 frequent flyer miles. And that is enough for a round-trip domestic ticket to many cities. Now, the company hasn't said how many customers have been affected. In the meantime, United CEO apologizing for taking a private jet while thousands of its customers were trying to get home. Scott move insensitive and wrong. and he was criticized after reportedly flying from New Jersey to Denver last Wednesday. It was the same day the airline canceled more than 750 flights. So travel demand has been up, and so has the cost of an airline ticket, especially in rural areas. Airlines have reduced or eliminated service to hundreds of airports outside of major U.S. cities, and that makes flying in and out of those areas more expensive. Scripps News correspondent Chris Conti shows us the effort to bring major airlines back to those airports.
Regional airports in this country are lobbying federal lawmakers for support, trying to revamp some programs that keep smaller airports from being financially grounded. Okay, day to fly?
It'd be very bumpy today.
Yeah. There are few things in life Bob Burley knows better than flying. Where's your plane?
It's in a hangar. We'll get there.
The 80-year-old has been flying out of Morrisville Stowe Airport in Vermont since 2000. I mean, you can tell we're right in the mountains.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Nestled in the heart of the Green Mountains, tourists flock here year-round to ski and to explore. What kind of role does an airport like this play in a community of this size?
It provides access.
But right now, all flights in and out of this airport are essentially grounded. There is no place for any of these planes to refuel on site. Pilots hoping to fly out of here must come in with enough fuel to do so. As it stands right now, there's nowhere to get fuel here.
No, you have to bunker. We call it bunkering. You have to come in with enough fuel to get out, to get to where you're going to find fuel.
That's kind of crazy.
Next. I think it transcends mere craziness.
Morrisville once had one commercial flight a day to the New York City area. That went away in 2022.
And the opening ritual.
What's happening in Morrisville is part of a larger story playing out at regional airports nationwide. Service essentially vanishing into thin air.
Basically can carry 2 passengers.
And rural residents who depend on regional airports for commercial service are stuck in the middle. In a lot of smaller places, this is how you get around.
Precisely. I eloquently said. It is a form of necessary transportation when you're far away from the urban centers.
Anyone flying into this region must travel through Burlington, an hour's drive away through the mountains. According to the Regional Airline Association, 324 airports have faced cuts since 2020. 14 of those airports have lost commercial service entirely.
It's a huge economic impact.
That is Richard Howell, executive director for a newly formed coalition called Restore Air Service. Restore stands for Restoring Essential Service to Our Rural Economies. The group represents airports that have lost daily air service since the pandemic, including Elmira, New York, Hagerstown, Maryland, Williamsport, Pennsylvania, Del Rio, Texas, Yakima, and Wenatchee, Washington. Many airlines have stopped service as federal funding has gone away, or they just don't see the routes as profitable.
We're looking to, to get together to be able to hit those influencers that can actually help us in achieving our goals and to bringing air service back into our community.
Restore's hope is to get the attention of congressional members during the ongoing FAA reauthorization process and get them to expand the Essential Air Service Program and Small Community Air Service Development Program. Both guarantee commercial flights to smaller communities.
What we found was no matter how hard we tried, there was nobody out there to be able to give us service, or that would be willing to start service.
While our industry contracted, small communities lost air service.
Earlier this year, the head of the Regional Airline Association addressed Congress on the issue, focusing largely on the role the current pilot shortage has on all of this, saying, quote, despite soaring passenger demand, a worsening pilot shortage has hindered the regional airline industry's recovery, decimating small community air service. What is maybe the community losing out on with the airport not living up to its full potential?
The businesses in the community that were dependent on tourist traffic are seeing quite a downturn.
Back in Morrisville, with no fuel, there is no hope right now of commercial airline service arriving. For now, at regional airports like this one, the future of some flights here feel as uncertain as the wind. Chris Conti, Scripps News, Morrisville, Vermont.
Travel figures for the 4th of July weekend are breaking records right now. The TSA reporting more than 2.8 million people passing through its checkpoints, and that breaks the previous record for daily screenings last set after Thanksgiving in 2019. And that number includes the hundreds of flight disruptions happening across the country. In the meantime, passport wait times have been threatening some people's summer travel plans. Some who applied in March are still waiting for their passports. The State Department blaming lingering effects from the pandemic, staffing shortages, and a pause on an online renewal system for the backlog. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the department is hiring agents as quickly as possible to address the record-breaking demand. And now to another step forward in the future of flight. A Silicon Valley company receiving special approval from the federal government to put its flying electric car to the test in the skies. National correspondent James Packard has the high-flying details from California.
George Jetson.
For decades, shows like The Jetsons and movies like Back to the Future had us anticipating the day when flying cars are the norm.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Now, Silicon Valley-based Aleph Aeronautics is one step closer to having the first electric flying car on the roads and in the air. This after the company was granted a special certification from the Federal Aviation Administration to test its products in the skies.
With this certification, we can actually fly close to home for different kind of purposes.
Jim Duchovny is one of the founders of the Northern California-based Sustainable Electric Transportation Company. He says the special government certification gives his company clearance to operate its Model A flying car over parts of Silicon Valley, an electric vehicle capable of driving on roads like an automobile or zooming up like a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. He says it's the first vehicle of its kind to receive such a clearance for test runs from the federal government.
I would claim it actually to be the first traditional car, and especially an electric car. Looks like a car, can be parked in a parking space, can be driven on a regular street with vertical takeoff, which is allowed by the government to fly. It's maybe a very small step for plane. It's a giant step for cars.
Aleph unveiled the full-size sports model car in October 2022, along with 2 working full-size demonstrator cars. Since then, pre-orders have been booming, with everyone from college students to boomers, even companies, looking to get behind the wheel of this first-of-a-kind ride. The price tag? $300,000.
We have actually the regular line and priority line. You can pretty much sure that most people in priority line have enough cash and want to get the first car. They are early adopters usually. They were one of the first ones who bought Teslas. They're the first who bought a lot of new technology.
Duchovny says the 6-figure sticker price for the futuristic vehicle may be steep to start, but that his company's goal is to significantly reduce the cost for the average consumer.
Our plan is to get it down to below 100K and then eventually to get it close to 35K. But first cars, it's just because as with any large hardware product, it's just like incurring the cost, right?
As for concerns about safety,
it's safer than helicopters and airplanes and safer than your regular cars on the ground.
The company says it plans to begin delivering the vehicles to customers by 2025. With the help of the federal government, they're one step closer to getting that goal off the ground.
With the modern technology, you should not be standing in traffic, wasting your time, wasting everybody's time, and so on. Time is very precious.
James Packard, Scripps News, Los Angeles.
Oh, that'd be so cool. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, a new twist on pickleball. Fans of the fastest growing sport in America are about to get a treat, all thanks to some familiar faces.
Are you tired of that old worn-out bath or shower? Now you can have a new one installed in just one day with a new limited-time offer from Jacuzzi Bath Remodel.
We're waiving all installation costs with no interest and no payments for 1 year.
Hi, I'm Art Edmonds. Jacuzzi has been making water feel great for over 65 years. And now you can get a gorgeous custom bathroom model at a price you can afford. And the best part is, they'll install it in as little as 1 day with no stress and no mess.
I've been trying to get him to remodel that bath for years. I called and they did in just 1 day.
And at a price we could afford.
Every time I stepped over my old tub, I worried I might fall. I don't have those fears anymore.
With Jacuzzi, you can get a safer, easy entry shower with features like functional grab bars and a custom seat to keep you feeling comfortable and independent at home. And with no interest and no payments for a year, it's a bathroom remodel you can afford.
Oh my God, I love it!
It's so pretty and new, and the tub is so deep, and I can't wait to just go climb in it and just lay there.
Our designers are standing by to guide you step by step. So call now to get your 1-day installation and find out how you can get luxurious upgrades and a lifetime warranty from a brand you know you can trust.
It was done in the same day. We did not have to wait.
It's absolutely perfect. It's exactly what I was dreaming of.
Jacuzzi bath remodel did not disappoint.
Your new jacuzzi bath or shower is waiting. Now is the best time to call and take advantage of one of Jacuzzi's best offers ever.
We're waiving all installation costs with no interest and no payments for 1 year.
Call or go online to jacuzzibathremodel.com today to take advantage of this limited time offer. Call 800-990-6587. That's 800-990-6587. Call now.
We're back for $500.
Can you take it?
Hair from the drain. Salmon, we heard you're allergic.
I can't take it.
Oh, Mimi, you ready?
There's an easier way you can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less when you download Dave.
For over 100 years, this light has shined, a beacon of the free American press.
Reporting from Ukraine, Scripps News.
And now, this light shines even brighter. Scripps News.
Well, a newcomer from New Zealand won the first ever NASCAR race in the Windy City, but it wasn't the rain creating challenges for the drivers. It was all of the heavy rain and the lightning. Now, the weather was so bad, officials shortened the race from 100 to 75 laps. Shane Van Gisbergen is the first driver in 50 years to win his debut race. And the Wimbledon tennis tournament has begun in England with all of the usual traditions and rain. Some courts had to be mopped up today before play could even begin. Men's top seed Novak Djokovic won his first set before weather led officials to suspend his match. Now, if he wins the title, it will be his 5th consecutive win and 8th overall, which would tie the men's records. So pickleball is one of the fastest growing sports in the country right now, and a new twist on the game could soon make it even more popular. Sports contributor Paul Crane gives us the scoop on a new league and a new concept.
The explosion of pickleball popularity in this country has led to more competition at the highest level, like the old American Football League in the NFL or the NBA and the American Basketball Association. Competition on the professional level is creating even more in this very young sport, now attracting pro athletes from other sports. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America. How fast? The number of people playing pickleball grew by 159% from 2019 to 2022, with 8.9 million players volleying on courts, according to the Sports and Fitness Industry Association. Now, some of those new players hitting the courts include retired pro athletes from the likes of Major League Baseball and the NFL, joining a new pro league, PBX Pickleball.
When I first started playing, and I won't mention names in Columbus, Ohio, but I was getting beat by people that I'm like, how is this even possible? I'm getting beat by this 71-year-old dude with 2 knee braces on, gray hair, great guy, but I can't beat him.
Kent Merker pitched in the big leagues for 18 years, mostly with the Atlanta Braves, where he threw a no-hitter in 1994 and won a World Series ring in 1995. Merker competed in last year's Pickleball U.S. Open in Florida and has joined PBX, which is backed by stadium and arena management giant Sports Facilities Companies, to compete on the new tour.
It's been fun watching it progress naturally. I won't say which groups are saying which, but there's been already some shots out there about which sport is a better athlete versus the other sport.
This is bigger than us, and we need to be accountable, hold ourselves accountable, and go out there and kick some butt.
Included among the dozens of other athletes already on board are World Series champions like Tino Martinez, Jeff Conine, Brad Penny, and Kevin Youkilis, Stanley Cup champions Chris Draper, Patrick Sharp, and Dave Boland, football wide receiver Golden Tate, and many more.
I think this is going to settle the age-old question of which sport has the best athletes.
Will they be winning any money?
No, most of that's geared towards charities because that's mostly what these guys want to do. They're out there for the competition. And there will be, these guys are compensated in other ways too throughout PBX.
The PBX Pickleball Tour plans a handful of stops in 2024, and each will include pro-ams with local players of all kinds.
The pro-ams are really where amateur pickleball players off the street will get a chance to play alongside these guys, these retired pros.
And anyone can get the chance to play with these athletes in another way as well. PBX Pickleball is offering Dream Weekend experiences.
And the Dream Weekend is really going to be a multiple day experience. We're looking like 4 days, 3 nights, build something bigger with an experience and a destination.
That's where pickleball meets fantasy camp.
That is exactly what that is.
This PBX is going to give us all washed up retired dudes a chance to get those juices flowing again, that competitive nature. I just think it's going to be such a unique experience, and nobody else is doing it.
The arrival of PBX comes just months after Major League Pickleball and the PPA Tour's Vibe Pickleball League agreed to a merger to unify the sport of pickleball with a global, co-ed, team-based league that will play under the Major League Pickleball brand. For anyone wondering what the audience might be for all this pro pickleball, last August, the Professional Pickleball Association's Summertime Championships aired on CBS and had more than 600,000 viewers for its coverage. Paul Crane, Scripps News.
All right, Paul, thank you so much. Argentine soccer superstar Lionel Messi set to be the highest paid player in Major League Soccer. Messi is expected to earn between $50 and $60 million a year when he joins Inter Miami. And it includes a guarantee of being part owner of the club once he retires, and some earnings from the league's broadcasting deal with Apple TV. Congratulations to him. Thank you so much for watching Scripps News. I'm Veronica Cruz. For the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next. Remember, you can always check us out online at scripsnews.com. And if you are staying with us, we have much more news headed your way on Scripps News Live, including a look at the 2024 campaign and the role that artificial intelligence will play in the race for the White House. We'll be right back.
There's a new victim of identity theft every 3 seconds. And checking your credit score or bank statements may not be enough to alert you. That's because identity threats appear in more places than you realize. Identity thieves can use your information to open loans, transfer home titles, even commit crimes.
Someone stole my information and tried to buy a car in my name.
LifeLock monitors for threats to your identity, including ones you may miss, and alerts you if there's an issue. And if you're a victim, your dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist will work to fix it.
If something happens, you have somebody fighting for you.
All plans backed by LifeLock's $1 Million Protection Package, including reimbursement for stolen funds.
I know LifeLock has me covered.
LifeLock, identity theft protection starts here. Call the number on your screen or visit lifelock.com/25now and use promo code 25now to save 25% on your first year of identity theft protection. Enroll now.
Non-attorney spokesperson. This is a paid advertisement for legal services by Nightline Legal. Cases assigned on a random basis to participating law firms.
Attention firefighters. If you or a loved one were exposed to firefighting foam and later developed cancer or other injuries, call right now. You may be entitled to financial compensation. Firefighting foam has been used for decades, especially on U.S. military bases and airports, although many of these fire retardants contain chemicals known as PFAs, which can accumulate inside the body and do not break down over time, potentially increasing a firefighter's risk of cancer. Cancers which may be linked to firefighting foam include testicular cancer, kidney cancer, thyroid cancer, pancreatic cancer, prostate cancer, and bladder cancer. If you or a loved one worked alongside firefighting foam and later developed cancer or other injuries, call right now. You may be owed significant compensation from the manufacturer. There are time deadlines to file a claim, so don't wait. Call now.
1-800-627-2046.
Hey there, thank you so much for joining us this Monday afternoon. It's now 1 p.m. in the East and 10 a.m. out West. I'm Veronica Cruz. Thanks for joining us on this Monday. Good to have you on this long holiday weekend. Welcome to Scripps News Live. We begin right now in Baltimore, where investigators are pleading with the public for help to find at least 2 gunmen who shot 30 people during a block party. That city is just one of several that saw violence over the weekend. National correspondent John Moan takes a closer look.
In Baltimore, 2 killed and 28 wounded in a mass shooting. It happened at a block party overnight Sunday. In the southern end of the city, all the victims are adults.
This was a reckless, cowardly act of violence that has taken 2 lives and altered many, many more.
The shooting widespread, signs of chaos as the panic-stricken crowd fled a storm of gunfire. An 18-year-old woman died at the scene, a 20-year-old man later dying at the hospital. 3 other victims are in critical condition. The chaos created a large crime scene, marring the July 4th weekend in the town where the Star-Spangled Banner was written.
When we get some daylight, we do another canvass, and our K9 units were able to locate more shell casings. So we had to put up more crime scene tape and recover those things.
Police are still looking for suspects, looking for videos on social media.
This tragic incident is another glaring, unfortunate example of the deep issues of violence in Baltimore, in Maryland, in this country, and particularly gun violence and the access to illegal guns.
This is a societal problem that we're dealing with, a mass shooting where a disagreement turns into 28 people shot.
In Kansas, 7 wounded overnight Sunday as a shotgun-wielding suspect blasted his way into a Wichita nightclub. The gunfire triggered panic inside. 2 more people injured trying to escape. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, a dispute turned into a gun battle outside a concert, resulting in 3 injured, 1 critically.
We had large gatherings and a shooting erupted.
Gun violence tearing through American streets, showing no sign of stopping. The website Gun Violence Archive saying to date there have been almost 340 mass shootings in 2023. John Moan, Scripps News.
Now to Washington in the race for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination. Former President Trump might have a massive lead in the polls, but Florida Governor Ron DeSantis started a new type of attack on the frontrunner. The DeSantis campaign shared a video over the weekend attacking Trump for his past support of the LGBTQ+ community.
I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens.
DeSantis has signed a series of new laws in Florida targeting LGBTQ+ rights. At least 18 other states have done the same. This latest attack ad has members of the community on both sides of the aisle criticizing the governor, accusing the ad of glorifying trans and homophobia. Now, as the 2024 campaign heats up, we're seeing signs this race will bear some differences from what we've seen in the past. Our Deputy Political Director Joe St. George has more now on the growing role of artificial intelligence in the race for the White House.
The reality is the 2024 presidential election is going to be different. We haven't had a former president try and get his job back since 1940 and President Herbert Hoover. We haven't had a current president try to win re-election over the age of 80 ever. The election of 2024 will also be different because it's never been easier to produce fake political images. For context, negative ads that stretch the truth aren't new in American politics. The first one is believed to be this one by President Lyndon Johnson, simply known as the Daisy ad, where the late president implies the choice is between him and a candidate who could create nuclear war. Since then, attack ads have only intensified. That commercial, though, as well as every other commercial really since the 1960s, required an actor and actual images to be captured on film. And that's the biggest thing that could change with the 2024 election.
Officials closed the city of San Francisco this morning.
This ad, produced by the Republican National Committee this year, was produced entirely using AI, artificial intelligence. The images are not real, but it is what the GOP calls the country's possible future if President Biden is reelected. The ad does note it in the top left in very small font. It says made entirely with AI imagery. While that ad was meant to attack Democrats, this AI Twitter ad by Ron DeSantis' campaign team is meant to attack former President Trump. You see those pictures of him hugging former White House advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci? That is fake. Twitter labeled it such in response. Those ads, as well as the overall concept of AI, have some in Washington racing to figure out a solution. But so far, there has been little success.
It's a very important topic.
At a recent meeting of the Federal Election Commission, policymakers debated the possibility of implementing new AI rules.
The motion fails 3-3.
The effort, though, did not pass, with policymakers concluding they don't have the authority, at least right now, to address it.
Congress has given us very sharply limited authority.
Congress, though, could address this and encourage the regulation of AI in politics before the 2024 campaign intensifies further. But so far, they have not, although legislation has been introduced, and the Senate is expected to dive deep into the AI debate later this month. For the moment, all of this means that you, the voter, will have to be extra skeptical of campaign commercials in this upcoming presidential election. Joe St. George, Scripps News, Washington.
Well, the Democratic Party agreed to overhaul its presidential primary system months ago, but deciding how to implement the change has been causing headaches. The updated schedule shows South Carolina will be first on February 3rd. Republicans want to hold their caucuses 3 weeks later, and then Democrats in New Hampshire and Nevada are supposed to hold their primaries 3 days later. But New Hampshire now says state law mandates its presidential primary must be first. Democrats are hoping to hold several primaries before Super Tuesday on March 5th. Now, in the meantime, in California, voters there are going to be receiving their mail-in ballots for the 2024 presidential primary in about 7 months from now. And for the first time in a while, the state could play a huge role in deciding the Republican nominee. Political experts told Jared Aarons with Scripps News San Diego that even though the Golden State is deeply blue, Republicans are going to give it a lot of attention.
While Republican presidential hopefuls like Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, Mike Pence, and others spent a lot of time this spring in Iowa, it won't be long before they head west.
Clearly, California is what I call the big enchilada.
Yes, California, with its endless supply of blue skies, blue waves, and blue voters, will see red as 2024 heats up.
The California GOP primary in 2024 is going to be a critical point.
In conversations with Scripps News political correspondent Joe St. George, San Diego political analyst John Dadian, and political research analyst John Nienstedt, all three said the same thing. In 2024, California will play a huge role in picking the Republican nominee.
All bets are off, really, I think, in this situation.
The calendar is a big part of this. In 2020, California moved its presidential primary from June to March to have more influence over picking the nominees. This cycle, it falls on March 5th, Super Tuesday, along with 12 other states, including Republican strongholds like Texas, Utah, and other parts of the South. Being that early means California can give a candidate momentum. That's why Nienstedt thinks it would be a mistake for candidates to focus on those red states that day and ignore what he calls one of the primary's biggest fish.
A win here, a good showing here, continues momentum in a delegate-rich sort of sense. So it gives more solidity to a campaign that does well here.
That's because California will send 169 delegates to the Republican National Convention, the most of any state. And instead of basing it on the statewide vote, the winner of each congressional district gets 3 delegates. So a candidate just needs to win a handful of districts to have a good day.
It's going to matter, and it's going to matter who finishes in second place or third place. It could be a moment where you have someone who maybe didn't perform well in Iowa, or maybe they didn't perform well in New Hampshire, have a bit of a comeback. It could be the moment that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis overtakes former President Donald Trump.
Or it could be the day that Trump solidifies his nomination. After all, 6 million people in California voted for him in 2020. That's more than Texas with 5.9 million, more than Florida with 5.7 million. In fact, Trump got more votes in California than any other state in the nation. These numbers show candidates need to win in California to win the GOP.
People forget how big a state California is. I mean, parts of Bakersfield up in central California, you would think you're in the South.
Issues like the Second Amendment matter more in rural parts of California. They'll be talking also about inflation and gas prices. They'll be talking about wokeness as well.
They'll also be talking about money.
Republican presidential candidates will treat it as they've always treated California, which is as an ATM machine.
In just the past week, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, and Ron DeSantis have all held fundraisers in California. More will come to pick up cash and votes.
Of course, Republican candidates are going to be coming to California. Of course, Republican candidates are going to be campaigning in San Diego County simply because they need the Benjamins in order to keep their campaign going.
That's why California, where a Republican hasn't won statewide election since Arnold Schwarzenegger in 2006, will feel the red heat in 2024.
Straight ahead on Scripps News Live, thousands of California's hotel workers are saying their pay doesn't match the cost of living, and now they're on strike. We're going to share their demands. Also, all students in Michigan public schools could soon enjoy a free lunch. We're going to explain how lawmakers are tackling food insecurity and school lunch debt. Plus, don't forget, you can count on Scripps News for all of your news throughout your primetime hours as well, beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern. We'll be right back.
Attention all seniors. You can now get up to $50,000 for your funeral and other final expenses, including your credit card debt, with no medical exam, starting at less than $1 a day.
Oh, honey, your dad and I can't stop talking about this baby that's coming.
We've also been thinking a lot about our future, and no matter what, we want to make sure we aren't leaving you and your family with any of our debts.
Just last week, we read that the price of a funeral can be $8,000 or more.
Wow, Jeff and I definitely would not have the money to pay for that.
And that's just a funeral. But you don't have to worry. We called, and with one phone call, we were eligible for $50,000 for our funeral and final expenses.
Well, that's great, but don't you need to take a medical exam to qualify? You and Mom have some health issues.
No. There's no medical exam, and we were able to get coverage right over the phone.
And our rates can never be increased, our benefits can never be decreased, and our coverage can never be canceled.
I'm so glad you made that call.
Don't leave loved ones with your debt. Call 800-339-7996 now and see if you qualify for up to $50,000 for your funeral and other final expenses, starting at less than $1 a day. There's no medical exam, and you can be approved even if you have pre-existing health conditions. Your rates can never be increased, your benefits can never be decreased, and your coverage can never be canceled. There's no obligation. Call 800-339-7996 now. There's no paperwork, no hidden fees, and no waiting periods. And you can start coverage right over the phone, starting at less than $1 a day. Call 800-339-7996. That's 800-339-7996. 800-339-7996.
This is Wise. 40 currencies, 170 countries, one account to take on the world. Take on Rio, take on Rome, take on this, and download the app today.
How does Klein & Spector get among the most big verdicts and settlements of any law firm in the country? Because Klein & Spector is an award-winning team with 5 doctor lawyers, the most of any firm in the United States. And that's why the New York Times calls Klein & Spector a powerhouse law firm. So if a defective product, motor vehicle accident, or medical malpractice caused a catastrophic injury, call Klein & Spector.
Do you have a box of videotapes, film reels, or photos that are degrading? Legacy Box professionally converts them to DVDs, thumb drive, or the cloud. Legacy Box is simple and safe, with over 1 million satisfied customers. visit legacybox.com.
Welcome back to Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica Cruz. Taking a look at the big board right now with Wall Street closing at 1 p.m. Eastern on this July 3rd before the 4th of July holiday. The Dow Jones there eking out a small gain. It finished up today about 10 points, and so did the other two indices. The S&P gaining 5 and the NASDAQ gaining 28 points. So the clock is ticking toward a threatened strike right now by UPS drivers, but progress is reported ahead of a July 5th deadline to avert a walkout. Negotiators with the Teamsters Union say that UPS upped its offer significantly over the weekend, addressing their concerns around pay and forced overtime. In fact, according to the union, they won't be making any concessions. But this is only a tentative agreement. Union leaders say a strike is still possible if a permanent deal isn't reached by Wednesday. Thousands of Southern California hotel workers, in the meantime, are on strike, and they are demanding more money to keep up with inflation and better benefits. Striking workers include front desk clerks, cooks, and bellmen. They say their pay hasn't kept up at all with the cost of living.
So the biggest thing folks are fighting for are fair wages to help keep up with the rising cost of housing. More and more we're seeing hotel workers having to move farther and farther out to commute into the city, making them drive 2-3 hours.
A coalition of hotels say provisions were made to offset the strike for as long as necessary. And Michigan is about to become one of 5 states in the country to provide free breakfast and lunch to all public school students. Kiara Hay with Scripps News Detroit says the decision followed many districts that were left grappling with tens of thousands of dollars in school lunch debt.
It was one of the few signs of relief for families during the COVID crisis. Free breakfast and lunch for students attending public schools.
During the pandemic, the line for the free lunch and the free groceries was just down the street.
But after 2 years, the price tag was once again placed on food in the cafeterias during the 2022-2023 school year, a bill many families still struggle to pay.
I've seen students come in and say, I'm hungry, but grandma says I can't get breakfast today because we can't afford it anymore.
Kelsey Friend is a math coach for the Ann Arbor Public School District, and in 1 year, that district accumulated over $66,000 in student lunch debt.
If the families don't pay off the lunch debt, then schools have to pay off that lunch debt, which means that schools are taking money away from educational resources.
Zubaida Aziza and Rija An work with End the Cycle, a student-run organization at the University of Michigan. End the Cycle was able to successfully pay off the entire student lunch debt here at Carpenter Elementary School in Ann Arbor. Now, this is one of the schools that doesn't have a special food program that caters to students that don't technically qualify for free lunch, but still deal with food insecurity. But now, thanks to Michigan legislators, the entire state's lunch bill could be wiped clean, and breakfast and lunch can be free for all starting next school year.
We are now one of, I believe, 5 states in the country to have that program.
State Senator Darren Camilleri is a sponsor for the Healthy Schools for All bill, allotting $160 million to pay for school meals. The bill, which passed the Senate, is expected to be signed by the governor in the next few weeks.
To have this opportunity where every student that comes to a public school can say, I'm hungry, and our response now is, great, here's food for you. We're moving in the right direction.
In Ann Arbor, I'm Kiara Hay reporting.
In North Dakota, higher education officials fear an exodus of students to Minnesota. And that's because next year, Minnesota's North Star Promise program will be offering free college and university tuition to 15,000 to 20,000 students in Minnesota per year. North Dakota is fearing some of the 1,400 Minnesota students who attend North Dakota colleges and universities might be returning home. And North Star Promise will be covering undergrad tuition for students with a family income below $80,000 after they've tapped into their financial aid. The violence continues in France days after a teenager was shot and killed by a police officer. Straight ahead on Scripps News Live, the growing calls from the teen's family for peace. And a new study painting a clearer picture of the cause of CTE and its findings have the potential to reduce the risks for athletes. We'll be right back.
Welcome to this year's cheese rolling competition. Who will catch the cheese and win the $500 prize? They are lined up, and let's roll it! Ooh, looks like we got a first-timer coming down the hill now.
Is a leg supposed to bend that way?
Not naturally.
Yeah, look at them go.
Barrel rolling down the hill.
That's going to leave a mark.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's not so easy to get a quick $500, is it?
No, it's not, Dan.
There's an easier way you can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less when you download Dave.
When Lila was ready to sell her ring, she sent it to Worthy, where they took care of everything and auctioned it on her terms. Then, Worthy sent Lila her money. You're worthy of more. Get started at worthy.com.
Sure, you should teach him to ride a bike. Then, use Greenlight and teach him how to invest in bikes. Teach him to be smart about money, and he'll go far.
Super far! Oh, hey, Mom!
Navigate the world of money together. Invest in your best investment. Greenlight.
Your paycheck. Your family depends on it. But if something happened to you, you need life insurance. And chances are SelectQuote can get it for you for under $1 a day. SelectQuote found Michael, 38, a $500,000 policy for under $23 a month. SelectQuote found Anna, 37, a $750,000 policy for under $23 a month. SelectQuote's secret? They comparison shop a select group of great companies like these for your best rate. Give your family the security they need at a price you can afford. Since 1985, SelectQuote has saved over 1 million families millions of dollars on life insurance.
Call now. 1-800-646-6345. That's 1-800-646-6345, or go to SelectQuote.com.
Discover what over 1 million families know. We shop, you save.
The doctor said I had a 29% chance to find a blood stem cell donor. But I knew you were out there. And when we matched, it was the best day ever. Dear donor, your blood stem cells saved me from leukemia. Thank you forever and ever and ever.
Experience the true joy of saving a life at BeTheMatch.org.
Sunday nights on In Real Life.
For the baby?
Yeah!
Scripps News journalists take you off the grid.
We were just a bunch of kids with a camera.
Stunts have become more specialized.
And to the heart of the story.
When the pandemic hit, the American dream kind of changed.
There were a lot of warning signs. They just didn't care.
In Real Life, Sunday at 8/7 Central, only on Scripps News.
Quick reminder right here, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call on our Scripps News viewer hotline toll free. That number is on your screen right now. It's 1-833-4-SCRIPPS. Feel free to share your comments and your story ideas. Argentine soccer superstar Lionel Messi is set to be the highest paid player in Major League Soccer. Messi is expected to earn between $50 and $60 million a year when he joins Inter Miami. One of the club's owners says that Messi's contract negotiations lasted 3 years, and it includes a guarantee of being part owner of the club once he retires. Messi will also be entitled to some earnings from the league's broadcasting deal with Apple TV, and he's scheduled to make his debut for Inter Miami on July 21st. 20 years worth of research suggests an additional cause of CTE. The degenerative brain disease has been found in the brains of hundreds of deceased NFL players, and now doctors have been calling on teams to change how they train. Scripps News correspondent Axel Tercios has the details for us.
Doctors and advanced researchers have long thought that the number of concussions suffered by athletes increased their likelihood of being diagnosed with the degenerative brain disease CTE, a disease only officially diagnosed after death. The brain disease has been discovered in the brains of more than 370 former NFL players, including some of the game's greats. But a new Harvard study says concussions are not the biggest factor when it comes to developing CTE. Instead, it can occur with repeated hits to the head, whether concussive or not.
The problem is when we're talking about CTE risk with the NFL players, their exposure didn't all happen at the NFL level. Their exposure happened throughout their entire lives in the decade or more before they ended up participating in the NFL.
Dr. Dan Daneshvar, an assistant professor at Harvard Medical School, was the lead author of the study. He says the majority of forceful head hits suffered by football players aren't even happening during the game.
Over 2/3 of head impacts for a football player occur in practice typically. And so if we eliminate half of the head impacts that occur in practices, based on just eliminating those practices, no change to the game at all, we could decrease the risk of CTE for an average, say, offensive lineman by about 50% over 8 years.
The study used 20 years of data from football helmet sensors, estimating the cumulative impact of hits on more than 600 former football players who donated their brains to Boston University. The research found that linemen were more prone to developing CTE than players at any other position. Despite experiencing less forceful hits, both offensive and defensive linemen experienced the most total G-force impact each season due to the sheer number of hits they endured.
We also know from helmet sensor studies that for every concussion that a football player gets, they get upwards of 334 head impacts that are of stronger intensity, of more force than a head impact that results in a concussion.
You have concerns because, you know how violent the sport is, you know the type of hits you took.
Former NFL running back Doug Chapman knows the perils that come with playing the sport. Chapman was a standout running back at Marshall University and played 5 years in the NFL.
Players may only remember that one hit, but they forget the 47 hits that led up to that concussion.
Chapman only remembers parts of one of the biggest hits he says he took during his career.
I remember the guy that hit me, and I remember where we were, and I remember the aftermath. It was my college and pro teammate, Randy Moss, standing over top of me with his hand out. And he's like, "Man, you straight? You straight?" And I had no idea where I was. I had no idea how I got there. I just remember looking down at my jersey, and it was just covered in blood in the front.
Chapman, now the director of player development for Marshall University's football team, says safety is a top priority for him as he watches his student athletes.
A lot of our staff has not just been around a lot of football. We've played football. We have 4 members of our staff that played in the NFL. And so, when you have that many eyes that have seen so much of the game, we're very proactive with watching our guys when they take big shots, watching their body language, how they got up, how they're reacting on the sideline.
The goal now, Dr. Danishar says, is reducing the number of hits and their impacts. New advanced technology helps that effort. More professional and college football players are wearing the Q collar, the first and only FDA-approved neck device that protects the brain during repetitive head blows. The NFL is also recommending the expanded use of a soft shell helmet cover to increase the protection of players during practices and off-season training. For youth football leagues, including Pop Warner, many coaches have eliminated tackling during practices. Chapman says leagues across all sports need to do a better job protecting athletes.
The sports themselves that make so much money off of the brand need to protect those players that help build its brand.
Axel Tercios, Scripps News.
And I'm Veronica de la Cruz. Thank you so much for joining us today. For the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next. Remember, you can always check us out on scripsnews.com online. And if you are staying with us, there is more news headed your way. Still to come, the riots are easing in France days after a deadly police shooting. Up next, the pleas for protesters to end the violence right now. Plus, as families spend the holiday by the water, advocates have been reminding parents to keep their eyes open to prevent drownings. The measures you can take to keep your child safe this holiday weekend. That's next.
Do you spend hours maintaining your gutters? Save that time with LeafGuard's maintenance-free system. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS. Mesh filters sit on top of your gutters, building up debris and eventually clogging. Then they need to be cleaned too. Honestly, your home should have been built with LeafGuard gutters. LeafGuard's wraparound hood deflects debris and keeps water away from your home. The one-piece seamless system is strong, 20% thicker than average and built to last. Plus, LeafGuard is guaranteed to never clog for as long as you own your home. Right now, get a complete Leaf Guard system for only $99 down, $99 a month, and $99 installation. You'll also receive a $100 Visa gift card with a free gutter inspection and in-home estimate. Damage from clogged gutters can cost you thousands. Never worry about clogged gutters again. Don't wait, you've still got time. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS today. That's 1-833-2-GUTTERS.
How does Klein & Spector get among the most big verdicts and settlements of any law firm in the country? Because Klein & Spector is an award-winning team with 5 doctor lawyers, the most of any firm in the United States. And that's why the New York Times calls Klein & Spector a powerhouse law firm. So if a defective product, motor vehicle accident, or medical malpractice caused a catastrophic injury, call Klein & Spector.
Welcome to Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica Cruz. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let's get you right to our top stories. The 4th of July weekend brought more gun violence to U.S. cities and towns. In Baltimore, the manhunt continues for the 2 gunmen in a shooting at a block party early yesterday. 2 people were killed, 28 wounded. More than a dozen are 18 or younger. 3 have been listed in critical condition. Still not clear whether the victims were targeted. Cleanup efforts are underway in Montana right now. Crews are removing globs of asphalt from the Yellowstone River. Officials with the EPA say that the cleanup involves cooling the asphalt with river water and then rolling it up and then putting it into garbage bags. It will then likely be recycled. Liquid asphalt and molten sulfur spilled into the river after a bridge collapse and train derailment last week. The main concern is still protecting human lives and animal nests in the area. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen will be visiting Beijing later this week in an effort to improve relations between the U.S. and China. She'll be arriving on Thursday and will stay through Sunday. Now, the goal of the trip is to stabilize the global economy and challenge China's relationship with Russia over the war in Ukraine. Yellen won't be meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Secretary of State Antony Blinken visited China last month. Burnt cars and destroyed buildings can be seen around France as the grandmother of the teenage boy killed by Paris police is calling for an end to days of violence. 45,000 police officers have been deployed to contain the protests. More than 2,000 people have been detained. Violent protests erupted after a police officer shot and killed the teenager during a traffic check last week. Scripps News Paris correspondent Ross Cullen joining us now live with the very latest on the protests right now. Ross, what is the latest? Bring us up to speed.
Yeah, Veronica, we are possibly seeing a de-escalation in these violent demonstrations. On Sunday night into Monday morning, there were just 200 people arrested. It's still a high number, but nothing like the peak that we saw with 1,300 people detained by police on Friday night into Saturday. And so the government is hoping that we will see a continued reduction in the number of incidents, a reduction in the intensity of the incidents of looting, rioting and arson. But if we do see any violence tonight, a sporadic violence, then it would be the 7th straight night of violence we have seen since the killing of the teenager Nael on Tuesday last week, shot dead by police during a traffic stop. His funeral was held on Saturday, and since then his grandmother has spoken out and said she's calling for an end to the smashing of windows, an end to the smashing of shops, an end to the torching of buses, saying we are the mothers who take the buses. We have now seen that slight drop-off in the number of incidents, and the government hopes that it will continue that way throughout the week and we will see an end to this violence.
And Ross, I've been looking into some of what's been taking place, and some of these demonstrations have been dramatic. I understand that a torched vehicle was driven right into the mayor's home over the weekend. So French President Emmanuel Macron had to cancel a state visit to Germany. What are officials saying about all of this?
Yeah, we had earlier on Monday a major demonstration in the south of Paris, led by the mayor, whose personal home was attacked over the weekend. That car was stolen and then driven into his house, set on fire. His wife broke her leg while she was trying to flee the scene. So there was a big demonstration in support of that mayor and in support of other mayors as well. There are going to be 200 officials invited to the presidential palace tomorrow for talks with Emmanuel Macron. Those 200 mayors will represent the most hard-hit districts where there have been issues of vandalism, looting, rioting and arson, or maybe a combination of all four in those mayors at different jurisdictions. And so we have seen the demonstration by the Paris mayor today, Anne Hidalgo, outside her opulent city hall in the centre of the French capital, saying that she unreservedly condemns the violence which has hit her city and cities across France. It really isn't specifically one demonstration with major figureheads and slogans and placards and flags. What is a main problem for the authorities is the spontaneity, particularly young people appearing in the middle of the night to loot and ransack at different shops. There, of course, is that element who are still demonstrating because they are outraged by the police killing of a teenager, but we have certainly seen the change, a lot of the rhetoric towards these young people, particularly looting shops. And last week, on Friday, Emmanuel Macron said TikTok and Snapchat need to step up and stop exacerbating the violence online.
Yeah, we're going to have to see what happens next. Ross Cullen with the very latest in the Paris protests there in France. Ross, thank you so much. Back in the U.S. now, Independence Day is a celebration for millions of Americans, but not everyone can handle large crowds or massive fireworks displays. Kaylee Starl with Scripps News Milwaukee spoke with a veteran who struggles this time of year and has a different kind of holiday message.
Every day I come to make sure that it's still up.
For the holiday weekend, Melissa Goodbear is decorating her yard with this sign.
Every year I put my sign out, please be courteous, because there's a combat veteran living here.
Deployed in 2008, she is an Iraq combat veteran.
During my deployment, at least 2 or 3 times a day, our base was attacked by mortars.
Fireworks used to celebrate the 4th.
One time I even got scared. I dove under a table.
A reminder of the violence she saw while deployed.
Every time you hear the fireworks, you feel panic, you feel scared, like everything bad.
In Iraq, hiding in a bunker.
Constantly running and hiding in bunkers for hours and waiting for them to say it's clear to come out.
At home, hiding in her own basement.
About 3 or 4 days out of the year, I go to my basement and I hide out with my headphones on.
For Melissa, it's the sound that takes her right back.
The loud ones were my favorite. Now it's torture.
Over a decade later, she's created a routine to help her PTSD.
As soon as I hear the fireworks, I put the headphones on, noise cancellation, and then I come downstairs.
Other veterans in the community speaking up too.
If you do know that there's somebody there that suffers from these situations, you should be cognizant and try to respect that.
Starting with a sign.
Maybe they should put signs up everywhere.
Their message is for a respectful celebration.
This holiday is a celebration of independence. We fought for this country, and the worst thing for us is the fireworks.
And that was Kaylee Starl reporting for us there in Milwaukee. Now, according to the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, 23% of veterans being treated by the VA have at some point had PTSD in their lives. So many families might be heading to the pool, the lake, or beach for the 4th of July. And as you celebrate the holiday or just trying to stay cool over the summer, remember, there are risks out there. A recent report from Consumer Product Safety Commission found drowning remains the most common cause of death for kids ages 1 through 4. And that's why organizations like the Zach Foundation have been committed to advocating teaching water safety. Karen and Brian Cohn established the foundation after their son Zachary drowned in their backyard pool. Megan Ferrero, executive director of the foundation, joined Morning Rush today.
We know that
parents really care about their children, that they're good parents, but there's a momentary lapse in that supervision when their kids are around water. It could be that they go to answer the phone or take something out of the oven or change another child's diaper. And in that brief moment, a child can go into the water and slip under unnoticed. Drownings are fast and they're silent. And as we know, they can be very deadly. We're not only thinking about water safety in backyard pools this summer, though. We are thinking about water safety in open water. We have had a rash of rip current drownings across the United States, particularly in the state of Florida and along the East Coast due to some of the severe weather events that we've been having. And so when you're around water this summer, whether it's in a backyard pool or in an ocean setting, constant adult supervision is critical anytime your children are around water.
So how does the Zach Foundation address the racial disparities in swimming ability and water safety, particularly among Black children?
Well, what we try to do is partner with organizations that are serving children that are most at risk for drowning. So we have a wonderful partnership with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. And through that partnership, we run water safety camps for kids ages 5 to 9. Those camps teach children how to be safe around water through dry land water safety curriculum and our children's book, The Polar Bear Who Wouldn't Swim. But they also teach kids in water swim skills. We teach them how to get in and out of the pool safely, how to tread water. And then we also come into Boys and Girls Clubs with the American Red Cross Centennial Campaign, which is a year-round water safety program that teaches children how to swim, trains and certifies lifeguards and water safety instructors, and teaches parents and caregivers CPR, which is a critical step to preventing a fatal drowning. If a drowning occurs, CPR should be administered immediately with breaths and compression.
And real quick, best advice to parents to keep their kids safe?
Best advice for keeping your kids safe: if you're at an ocean or a lakefront, park yourself right next to the lifeguard chair. Make sure that your kids are swimming right in front of the lifeguard. Teach them, if they find themselves in a rip current, to flip on their backs, float with the current, and just follow it along until they get out of that rip current. If you're around a pool this summer, which I'm sure many Americans will be sure that you provide constant adult supervision. Take turns with another adult. Take 10 minutes for yourself to be constantly surveilling the water, and then switch off with another adult. Don't use a phone. Don't read a book.
And that was Megan Ferraro, the executive director of the Zach Foundation, earlier on Morning Rush. Straight ahead on Scripps News Live, pet custody disputes are on the rise right now, and the battles in court aren't always easy. We're going to explain how the legal system decides what's best for your furry friend. That's next.
If you, like many people, are covered by both Medicare and your state's Medicaid, here's something important to know. Now you could get even more health benefits than you already have. It's the United Healthcare Dual Complete Plan. To find out if you or someone you care about is eligible, it's easy. Call now to talk with us. We can explain it all and answer your questions. Medicaid gives you benefits, and Medicare gives you some too. But a Dual Complete Plan can add even more benefits and features compared to original Medicare. You'll have lots of doctors and hospitals to choose from. $0 copays on all covered prescriptions, including brand names. And depending on where you live, you could enjoy other benefits too, like more dental care and rides to and from your doctor or pharmacy. Most plans even give you up to $300 a month to help pay for covered over-the-counter products, groceries, and new this year, utility bills. And best of all, with this plan, there's no extra cost to you. Remember, if you have Medicare and Medicaid, chances are you could get a Dual Complete Plan. So call now to talk with us. Our agents are available to help. We know healthcare can be confusing. United Healthcare can straighten things out. And with over 40 years of experience, you can count on us to be there for you. With a Dual Complete Plan, you could have a wide choice of doctors to choose from. $0 copays on all covered prescriptions, help paying for covered over-the-counter products, groceries, and utility bills. More dental coverage too, all at no extra cost. If you have both Medicare and Medicaid, you may be eligible for Dual Complete. So call the number on your screen now to see if you're eligible or to enroll. There's more for you with the United Healthcare Dual Complete Plan.
At Omaha Steaks, we do burgers differently. We take a premium aged steak like this and turn it into a pure ground burger like this. So this is actually a ribeye. This is a New York strip, top sirloin, beef brisket, and this is a filet mignon. For a limited time, our Burger Perfection flight comes with 20 big, juicy burgers, all for just $79.99, plus free shipping. Get it today at omahasteaks.com/TV. This is Burger Perfection, guaranteed.
When Lila was ready to sell her ring, she sent it to Worthy, where they took care of everything and auctioned it on her terms. Then, Worthy sent Lila her money. You're worthy of more. Get started at worthy.com.
Local, national, and worldwide headlines, breaking down the day's biggest stories with live reporting from around the globe.
I'm Del Walters, and this is The Debrief.
Live tonight, starting at 6/5 Central, only on Scripps News.
Hey there, welcome back to Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica Cruz. Custody battles are common for separating couples, right? But for the past several years, pets have been the center of these court cases. National correspondent Meg Hilling shows us how the legal system handles ownership disputes.
Who gets custody? That's the question being asked in courtrooms across the country. And in many cases, it has nothing to do with kids.
It's humans fighting with each other, and the animal's just sitting there and trying to, not be part of it.
Be it for a breakup or full-on divorce, couples are increasingly seeking legal counsel for determining who takes custody of their dogs, cats, birds, or even turtles as they part ways. It's a trend that's been on the rise for decades, playing out in court TV shows and movies, like this scene in Legally Blonde.
Tell him, Paulette. I'm taking the dog.
So what's driving these pet custody disputes?
The problem is the change of the family. There aren't kids to fight over anymore. So many couples choose not to have children, and so the pet, the companion animal, does become the child substitute.
David Favor is a professor specializing in animal law at Michigan State University. Similar to disputes over children, he says pets have become a contentious point of control for separating couples.
Families have gotten smaller, and many people live alone and have an animal and then join up with another human, and that partnership falls apart, and so they have to hold on to that animal for their own emotional well-being.
And Favor is right. The family dynamic in the U.S. is changing. According to the data collection platform Statista, the average family in the U.S. had 2.44 kids in 1965, whereas families in 2022 averaged roughly 1.94 kids per household. Meanwhile, Forbes Advisor reports that U.S. households with pets jumped from 56% in 1988 to 66% as of 2023, with millennials making up the largest percentage of pet owners at 33%, followed by Gen Xers at 25% and baby boomers at 24%.
I remember one time I had a phone call from a woman who said, her life depended upon her getting custody from her husband in a divorce. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, I'm very sorry you feel that way, but I want to know what's the best interest of the animal.
Depending on what state you're in, that's a question more and more courts are taking into consideration when reviewing pet custody disputes.
There have been laws passed in recent years in states like Alaska, California, and Illinois that will specifically direct courts to take into account the interest of the animal when dividing property during a divorce proceeding.
Christopher Berry is a managing attorney at the Animal Legal Defense Fund, and so far in 2023, lawmakers have introduced pieces of legislation in Tennessee and Pennsylvania that would ask judges to consider what's best for the pet, and Berry says more states will likely follow suit.
There's a disconnect between what is happening in the law a lot of the times and what we feel as families and as a society. But the law, in a lot of ways, is still holding on to the traditional idea that an animal is no different than a piece of furniture or a tractor or some other piece of personal property that doesn't have any other value outside of its monetary or market value.
Since pets are still widely considered property, often the person who has the most financial investment will retain custody of the animal. Think purchase receipts, vet bills, and training. But that isn't always the best fit for the animal. So where does that leave couples and, more importantly, pets?
I started this work out of necessity.
Karis Nafty is a pet custody mediator and animal behavior expert who spent nearly 30 years working with families and their pets. She says it is crucial couples discuss who should keep the pet in the case of a separation from the very beginning. Instead of a prenup, it's a petnup.
At that moment, be adult enough to say, listen, we need to have one owner for this animal so that if this doesn't work out, we know where the dog is going. Nobody wants to have that conversation. Nobody likes what that conversation implies.
Nafty says, unfortunately, the media's coverage of high-profile celebrities battling over their pets has fueled the idea that pet custody is something that needs to be fought over.
For me, the sad part about that story is it sort of pushes the narrative that it should be a fight, that it's okay to fight about it, that it's like normal to fight about it because a famous person did. And that's just a shame because it doesn't need to be like that. It absolutely doesn't. You shouldn't feel righteous that you should fight about something like that.
As for who should take custody, Nafty says it's important to consider factors like intent, time, and the health needs of the animal.
People are often, without realizing it, using their dog as a weapon or kind of a bargaining chip between them and their ex. They're either not willing to give the dog up, not because they're that attached to the dog, but because they're not actually ready to say goodbye to their ex. You have to really look at each dog as an individual. Look at any health issues the dog has, look at the exercise needs the dogs have, kind of what does this particular dog need to be happy?
As for splitting custody, Nafty says not so fast.
People need to take a step back and realize that by doing that, they are setting themselves up to be in constant contact with their ex for years going forward. And in my experience, this often becomes unsustainable after a time, whether it's a few months, sometimes a few years.
Looking ahead, Nafty says she expects courts will continue to evolve in how they approach pet custody disputes, and she hopes pet owners will do the same.
They're not just things, but they're not people either. There's something different, and so we have to really see them as the species that they are, the breed that they are.
Meg Hilling, Scripps News, Chicago.
Well, when one Florida woman was born, the life expectancy for women in the U.S. was just 54 years, but she's defied the odds and nearly doubled that number.
My name is Lorraine King, and I just turned 107 years old.
Wow, 107. Coming up after a quick break, we're going to chat with one of America's oldest living citizens about the key to longevity. That's next.
This year, Americans will spend $41 billion on auto repairs.
That's right, billions with a B. Why is that number so high? Because cars break down. Your vehicle is going to end up in a shop like this too, and if it's no longer under warranty, you're the one who has to pay the bill, and it could cost you thousands of dollars. That is, unless you call CarShield. With a plan through CarShield, administrators will pay for those costly repairs directly to the mechanic of your choice, including dealerships. That means you get protection on major parts and systems like the engine, transmission, electrical systems, and more. Plus, 24/7 emergency services for flat or damaged tires, lockouts, dead batteries, and towing at no additional cost. And there are even rental car options to keep you on the road.
I've been a mechanic for 35 plus years now. I've seen thousands of repairs over the years. My happiest customers are the ones that come in who have some kind of auto protection policy that's going to cover the repair that they wasn't expecting anyway. I feel great about recommending CarShield to everybody I see.
CarShield has a rich history of dependability, reliability, and success, and has been featured on leading networks like ABC, CNN, Fox News, and more. CarShield is America's most trusted auto protection company.
My mom told me to call CarShield, and I saved $5,000. You should always listen to your mom.
As soon as my car broke down, CarShield jumped into action, and I had my car back within days.
I've been with CarShield for close to 7 years. I have 3 vehicles covered, and I saved close to $9,000.
I called CarShield and saved over $5,000.
Yes, CarShield is a good value. Every plan through CarShield comes with a price lock guarantee, which means no matter how many repairs you need, the price you pay today will never change for as long as you cover your car.
Call now and save money with your price lock guarantee. It's not a matter of if your car will break down, but when.
Call CarShield now before it's too late. Call 800-287-5264. 800-287-5264. 800-287-5264.
Why didn't I try medication sooner? I guess I thought my anxiety would just go away. And I didn't know how to get help. Finding Hers changed everything. After a free online intake at forhers.com, a licensed provider got back to me within 24 hours. She prescribed me an FDA-approved medication, and Hers delivered it right to my door. Through the Hers app, I can message my care team anytime, and I get curated content to support my treatment. Now, I finally feel like myself again. Get started today at forhers.com.
Hey, I'm inside the bank. What? I don't have much time. Where's the $500?
I said drop your bank and get Dave. The banking app.
What?
There's an easier way.
Oh, she going to jail.
You can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less when you download Dave.
You're watching Scripps News. Streaming everywhere, totally free. Want to see more? Grab the app on your favorite streaming platform or go to scripsnews.com to find every way to watch. Go to scripsnews.com now to find out more.
Hey there, welcome back to Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica Cruz. Have you ever wondered what it's like to live longer than 100 years? One Florida woman can tell you all about it, and that's because she just celebrated her 107th birthday. And she shared some of her most precious memories with Heather Lee with Scripps News Tampa. Take a look.
In this typical suburban home lives a remarkable woman.
My name is Lorraine King, and I just turned 107 years old.
These days, needlepoint occupies her time.
I finished that one about 6 months ago.
Miss King is quite the creator. That may be one secret to her longevity.
This is my therapy. What would I do? Sit here and die? As long as I'm creating something, I have to live to finish it.
She also has a few ounces of a very specific wine each night.
Cherry Chiaffa.
She's been drinking it for at least 50 years. When you sit down with Miss King, the stories seem endless. But if you ask the doctor who delivered her in July of 1917, his optimism for Miss King's survival was pretty grim.
The doctor said, don't bother to name her. She won't live 2 days. Because he had a murmur. I still have a murmur every time the doctor checks it. So you can live with a murmur.
You can climb mountains too. She ventured 5 in her lifetime, once getting lost on Mount Washington when she was in high school, trekking through the night only to come out on the other side in a different city.
Oh, it was terrible.
In 1940, she and her husband took a trip to Washington, D.C. And while sightseeing, they ended up taking an underground train to the Capitol building. They paid visit to the New Hampshire office where she's from and got free tickets to the White House. The next day,
I get to the White House, I open the door. There's no guards, no policemen, there's no gate. It's all open.
Miss King says she never did get a glance of the president at the time, Franklin D. Roosevelt, but then again, she doesn't recall seeing anyone.
Well, it was very neat, but I didn't see anybody.
A few years later, King would become one of the first Americans to own a television.
It was in a frame and it was round, and there was a lot of snow, and it wasn't always clear.
She's upgraded over the years. A flat-screen TV now sits in the back room of her house. She does not have a cell phone, though. She had one for a short while, but says she never used it. Prefers the landline. Maybe she's onto something. One thing's for sure, Miss King is up by 6, in bed by 8. Routine is a part of her incredible life. So what does she think about being alive nearly half as long as America?
I think that's amazing.
We do too, Miss King. Happy birthday.
I'm Heather Lee for Scripps News.
Oh, congratulations, Miss King. And that was Heather Lee there reporting for us. I'm Veronica Cruz. Thank you so much for joining us today. For the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next. And remember, you can always check us out online at scripsnews.com. If you're staying with us, we have much more news headed your way on Scripps News Live. I'll be back with you at 3 p.m. Eastern, and we'll have